Hi, I'm Chris Hanley and welcome to Dark Days Radio presents Dark Iron. This is a Warmachine and Iron Kingdoms series, mainly focusing on Warmachine right now. You can get episodes of the podcast that will talk about the setting for the RPG. There's already a short series of episodes that look at how to play the game, but in this episode we're going to carry on from looking at why I was drawn to the game and what armies I collect, and now look at how the app works and how this free source of information and fully functioning app and fully featured app allows you to build your armies and drill down into the rules and understand the game. So let's get into it. So, as you can see here, we've got the main Warmachine screen. Now, this is on the desktop, but this will be very similar if you use it on an app. It also resizes really well for if you're using a tablet. So, before we get into these bits here, you might want to subscribe to the app, make an account. That way it saves you your army list, so you can synchronize across devices. Let's get into the library here. So in the library, as you can see, we can search for terms and that'll take us to links. So if we just do that quickly, let's put in wall. So we can see there are 16 results in the rules, and we can see that it takes us to particular places in the rule book. So that's a useful feature if you're looking for specific rules or status effects, etc. We can also see in the main rule documents, we've got a few things. We've got the main rule book, we've got the training guide for warcasters, the training guide for warlocks, tournament rules, journeyman league that allows you to play games as you build up your armies with your mates. Timing reference, that really gets into the nuances of how certain actions in the game have to be timed correctly to resolve the rules. And icon reference, just so that you can look at things that, instead if it's represented by an icon like a rule such as tough or say resistance to, you can check what those icons mean and then go through to the rule book where it will explain that rule in full. If we look at the rules, we've got chapters we can click into, but we're not going to get into today. Furthermore, if you subscribe, you get access to a whole lot of novellas, novels, lore, information about different characters, different armies. So those are all novellas, and then we finally get into the compendiums. So these are kind of like army books that we used to have printed. These exist in digital format, overview of each of the forces, a deep dive on each of the warcasters and warlocks, and then some more material to read, some novels and stories. So that's the library. The next bit is the cards. So this is where you can browse all of the armies, all of the models in an army. So we've got all the MK4 armies, and if you want to look for the rest, you can get all the old armies, their full army lists, legacy, or their two limited army lists, known as, which are legal for prime gameplay. So they're all there. And if we click into one, let's do Necrofactorium. It will load up our list of warcasters, warjacks, solos, mercenary solos, units, and cards to use in the game. So these will be the command cards, and then also you've got a breakdown of the spell rack and other things that are useful in the game to know, how, because these are terrain, so they have cards associated with them, so you can understand how they operate. If we click into a card, so let's go for Axiolon Kythos here. As you can see, we've got his model type, so his Crix, Cephalaks, part of the Hive Mind cadre, and a Warcaster. Field Allowance C, so that means it's a character. If that's another model, it might say Field Allowance 1, Field Allowance 2, or again Field Allowance C for a character. Health, how much health he has, how many hits he can take before he's dead. Information about how he operates as a battle group, so what models he can take. Then we've got his base size, a symbol that means Pathfinder, another symbol that means Isle of Sight, and another symbol that means he can fight both close combat and melee in the same round. His profile, speed, movement, arcane attack, that's for making spell attacks. Melee attack rating, range attack rating, used for making your melee close combat attacks and range attacks with guns. Defense, that's the target you would need to equal or beat to make an attack. Armor, the value you need to equal or beat with you need to beat with the combined power and dice roll of your attack to deal damage. Arcane stat, this will either be focus or fury for the relevant warlock or warcaster, and control. You then can get drop downs with more abilities. Then their weapons with their profile, in this case a range attack, the range of the weapon, the rate of fire of the weapon, the power of the weapon, again some symbols. That means it's magical, that means it can be fired into close combats. Some more abilities on these weapons. Again, similar deal for the close combat weapons, then their feat, and then the list of spells, which again, if they're offensive, they'll need to use their arcane attack rating to do attacks with them, their cost, their range, if they're an AoE, their power, if there's an attack, their duration, and if they're offensive or not. So that's kind of what the cards look like. They can get more in-depth if we look at, say, the Malefactor. If we look at the Malefactor, it's interesting because we've got, again, more symbols, their damage grid, which is for warjacks. We've then got the variety of head and weapon options and their points cost, because this warjack you can build with any combination of these weapons, arm options and head options. Of course, that will give you a total points value, and of course that will have to fit into your points limit for the game. As you can see, field allowance is 4. If we look at the Malfesser, again has hitboxes. Though if we look at, say, something like Old Umbre, more recent army that's come out, and we look at the War Beasts, so if we look at the Primeval, we don't have hitboxes, we've got life spirals. So they operate similarly. We're not going to get into that right now. That is covered in the short series of how to play. But again, the profiles are relatively similar in how you understand them, other than that War Beasts come with a Fury stat and a Threshold stat, which controls how many times they can be forced and whether they will go berserk or not. So you can go through your armies and browse quite happily on the app. So the next step is to build a force. So let's make a new army. Let's make a new army for a Prime army. So if we're using Legacy, that means we can use any army and we don't have restrictions. Prime is restrictions that are for the current version of Warmachine and for tournament play. So if we look at let's pick and build a Gravediggers army. We're going to build this round Alison Jakes. We're going to choose a points limit. We're going to choose Skirmish. There are different play styles here. Recon, 30 points is basically your intro game. Skirmish, 50 points. You can play Pitch Battle, 75. Grand Melee, 100. Total War, 100. And then the duo, they give different options. So it means you can take actually 2 Warcasters in the duo lists, which opens up more complexity to the game, but also new synergies and combinations. We're going to build a skirmish force at 50 points. We already gave the army a name. And as you can see, it tells us that we need to add some things to our list. It's given us a default list of command cards, and we're going to add a Warcaster. So let's go do that now. We're going to add Alison Jakes. So you can see it's added one of her to that list. We also need to add a Warjack. So let's add a character Warjack, which is the one that comes in her box, which is Beaker. We don't have any options that we can give Beaker, but we're going to also add in a cheap old Patriot here, which we can take up to 4 of. We're going to add one of those. And as you can see, they're now added into our list, taking up 28 points. Beaker, we don't have any options for on what we can arm him with. He's just got these head and arm options. If we click into him, we get the full breakdown of his abilities and weapons. But if we look at the Patriot, we've got some options. So let's pick a head option. Let's give him Shield guard. Let's choose a right arm option. Let's give a dual cannon, and left arm. Let's give a let's give it a trench blade. And we can see his points will have changed, so he's now costing us only 9 points versus Beaker's 16. Also note, Warcasters and Warjacks don't cost points. Warcasters and Warlocks don't cost points. So we've got 25 points spent. Let's buy some other things. Let's buy a unit of troops, maybe. Let's take the character unit known as the Rowdies. Let's also take a unit of Gravedigger Rangers. That takes up to 42 points. Let's take a Sniper. And then that gives us 5 points left over for... Ooh, let's see. Let's take... We can't really fit in another Warjack, but we could fit in a unit of gun majors, so let's do that. So now we can see our full list here. We've got an attachment symbol here, that paperclip, that means that Trollkin has been added to that unit. And then we've got the Rowdies there. Again, if we drop into them, we can see they're made up of 3 models of 8 hit points each. And they have a variety of abilities and weapons. Same here. Though obviously this is a basic unit, so it has much less complexity. An interesting symbol to note here is this one means it's a Jack Marshal. It means they can control Warjacks, which are landed on the battlefield. If we were to take the command card to do that, but we don't have enough points in this army. So the next thing is we want to validate this army. So we can validate and save it, and that means it checks the points, checks the limitations for this game size, for the game type that we're playing, and if it's valid, then that's great, and it'll tell us if it's not. We can then also create a share code for our army to pass it to our opponent so they can see what's in our army list on their app, on their application, on their device while they're playing. We can create a copy of this force, or we can do copy force to text, so we can take it into a text file, and it's just a list of what the army list is. So that's useful if you're playing in tournaments, you want to provide your entire army list. If you wanted to, though, to do printing of your army, you can print the expand or condense or health only. And the great thing about this is then the expander gives you everything you see here in the app for your army list and their rules for each unit, each model. And that means you can, laminate it and then use it with a dry white pen without having to resort to using an app on a device. So this is a great way of having a backup if you're playing in a tournament and you're worried about your device running low in power. I obviously use that a lot for demo games. So with that done, we can now play a game. So we're going to create a new match. We're going to select our army we just built, Alison Jakes there. And as you can see, it says to start match. So when we start the match, that means we can now start recording damage onto these units and models as they are eliminated. So that symbol there means we can eliminate the gravediggers to denote that they're dead. Same here. That plus symbol means we can say that they've had attached to them or used a command card. In particular, it's quite important for this army because they can have attached to them, say, a blocker due to a command card. And that way we can note the hitboxes and damage on that. But let's get rid of that. Over attached card limits. Well, that doesn't matter now. Anyway, so if we were to do damage to Beaker, we can edit that and we can say which box the damage is dealt to and how much. I'll accept it. And as we do this, if we were to deal damage again, and then again, you can see that it tells us which systems of the Warjack are out of action. And that is how this all works. That is the app. You can add in objective cards, so those might be characters that you need to take control of. You can add in terrain cards, so you've got those for reference. Always good just so you can quick look up. So if we wanted to add, we're going to have walls in the game, barricades, let's add that. Let's have a look at what that does. We've added a wall, let's look at it. A wall is an obstacle that grants cover. So those might be features that you add in as part of your deployment due to how you're playing. But that is the app. So I hope that's been useful, just looking at that. If you've got any further questions, please drop them into the comments of this video. And as a follow-up to this, we could possibly look at how the game operates in a longer discussion using videos of gameplay. And then I can see us going further into different armies, different units, different play styles, and investigating those. Plus there's the lore, and there is a lot of it. So, thank you for watching, and goodbye.